Lauren Bateman helps make guitar make sense so that aspiring guitar enthusiasts can finally have more fun playing the songs they know and love. She specializes in working with absolute beginners who have never touched the guitar before to intermediate level guitar players that have been struggling to play on their own for years. Her YouTube channel currently sits at over 210,000 subscribers and over 14.8 million total channel views. Today, I'll be speaking with her about how she built her YouTube presence and her music career, as well as anything else interesting that comes up. But before we get into the conversation, this is the Video Creator Show, where I talk to people who have achieved a certain level of success on YouTube. And we are brought to you by VidChops.com, an editing service that helps take the burden of editing off your back. Check out VidChops.com to see how you can save yourself tons of time and energy while taking your YouTube channel to the next level. And now, here we are with Lauren Bateman. Lauren, can you describe exactly what it is you do? I obviously described it in the intro, but I find that often people are best at introducing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So I focus primarily on teaching guitar, specifically to beginners and older learners. And I do not have a degree in music. I always let people know that. My degree is actually in biology and archaeology. I was just really passionate about music.
Awesome.
So I have probably a little bit of a different approach, to teaching than a lot of people who went to college or got degrees in music. And for me, it's all about having fun. I never took music too seriously in terms of that I was going to become, someone who played in an orchestra or a pit that I needed to sight read music. So I always just focused on having fun with music because that's what really intrigued me about music. And that's what I try and teach my students. Hey, we don't have to be perfect. As long as we're having fun, then let's keep doing that.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is the biggest thing that keeps people from really enjoying music? Because I've met a lot of aspiring musicians. Sometimes they keep with it, sometimes they don't. And there seems to be people who are able to practice regularly. Then there are people who don't practice very much, but they're still kind of in the game. What is it that makes somebody able to practice consistently and overall enjoy the process?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it comes down to their why. Why are they doing it? I find when people have a big enough why. So to give you an example, I have many students who, maybe their parent passed away and had given them a guitar, and they're like, I really want to learn how to play this guitar so I can honor, my father's memory or my mother's memory. So that's a really big why for someone to start something. So I always tell people, and this isn't just guitar either. It's a YouTube show, right? How do you become successful on YouTube? Well, you have to have a really good why for why you're doing it, or you'll want to give up. So I feel like it's the same with guitar. If you have a big enough why, when it starts to get a little hard, a little frustrating, you remember why you started, and that kind of keeps you pushing forward. So that's one part of it. And the second part, I really think, is how quickly you can develop an appreciation for the instrument or for music. So a lot of times, there's a lot of teachers out there who focus on what they like for music and what they want to do, as opposed to focusing on what the student enjoys. So if it's enjoyable for the student, they're more likely going to stick with it, as opposed to, if there's someone who really loves Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran, and you're trying to teach them Led Zeppelin and they're not into classic rock, it's, probably not going to work out very long term for that student, because they're not going to be interested in the music, and they're just going to want to stop because they're like, this isn't any fun.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So clearly you're well-versed in kind of your own philosophy here. You know how to teach people. You know what keeps people interested. Can you walk us through kind of the beginnings of your introduction to music? You've been in the game for a while, so tell us how it all started.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I actually started on piano and absolutely hated it for many of the reasons I just spoke about. The reason why I was doing it because my mom was making me take piano lessons. I wanted to play the drums, and so, I wasn't into the piano. And I was learning in a very classical method when I was younger. I actually took my piano lessons at the convent. So I was learning in a very traditional classical method, which for a creative person like me, it's very rigid and strict, and I just didn't really like the sight reading. So I ended up quitting piano, and then when I was 16, my sister bought me an acoustic guitar, and I still have that guitar. It's hanging on the wall in my office here. And my mom was like, don't do it. She's not going to do anything with it. She's going to waste it. And I don't know what it was about that instrument. I just could be creative on it. I didn't really understand how the piano worked, but when I figured out how to play chords on a guitar, it was like the end all be all. It was like I could start writing my own songs, I could play other people's songs, and it just became very inspiring to me. And, I played all through high school, all through college, mostly self-taught because we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And I wasted the piano lessons. So my parents weren't going to waste money on guitar lessons. So I kind of had to figure this stuff out on my own. And once I finally graduated from college, I, got a job and had some of my own money. And I was like, maybe I should take some lessons to get better at this. And at that point, I had been writing my own music. I went and recorded. I started performing and kind of did all those typical musician things you do when you want to be a musician. And I quit my job working for the pharmaceutical company. And I said, well, you don't make a lot of money playing original music in bars. You make some money. So I said, well, what am I going to do to make money? So I was like, well, I'll start teaching. I'll start teaching out of my apartment. And that's what's got me started in the whole teaching thing. And that actually took off really well. Like I said, I don't have a degree in music. I don't have a degree in education. But for some reason, I was really good at communicating things with people, probably from my science background, because I'm very methodical. And, I got a few students, then I had a full roster of students, and then I hired one of my students to take all the, overflow of students. And then eventually I opened up a brick and mortar location that I still have to this day. I have a couple brick and mortars here in the Boston area. And that's what led me to start teaching on YouTube, because I wasn't teaching in the schools anymore. I was kind of managing the businesses a lot. So I was working on the business versus in the business. But I really missed that teaching aspect. And I said, well, what can I do? How can I still do what I love, which is teaching people to have fun with music, but not need to be in a building every single Monday, from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock or 2 to 10 or whatever that was. So I said, I'm going to start this YouTube thing. And I started teaching on YouTube. And that's kind of the full circle of how I got to where I am today, and uploading that first video. And I think I got 1 view. And it was probably me. I think it was me just making sure that it
That's
had
usually
worked.
how it goes.
That's usually how it goes, and that's how the whole YouTube thing started, and how I got to where I am today.
That is awesome. So you had a business that preceded the YouTube channel. Can you tell us how the YouTube channel and your business coexist now? Like, how exactly do they feed into each other? Yeah,
absolutely. So obviously, a lot of people see me on YouTube, as you said, almost 15 million views now, which is incredible, and over 200,000 subscribers, which is so cool. I get people who reach out to me all the time and are like, do you teach privately? Can I take lessons with you? And unfortunately, I don't have the time for that as much anymore. So usually I'll refer them to one of my teachers, and I'll say, hey, I don't teach anymore, but I have these great teachers that I've actually interviewed and hired. And they can teach you. So I do have some of my online students who take lessons with my private teachers at the brick and mortar, but they are still very kind of separate businesses. They don't feed off of each other too much, but, the brick and mortar, I think, gives the credibility that, I know what I'm doing, even though I didn't have the degree, like I said. The fact that people know that I own a music school, they're like, well, she must know what she's doing if she has this music school. So I think that helped, having that before YouTube.
Mm-hmm, totally. I feel like that always makes YouTube a bit easier, at least, when, especially if you kind of have a certain level of validation, like before starting a channel. I think some people, YouTube is kind of their first venture into working for themselves or having their own business. business.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah. And as you know, when you're starting your own business, things can be a bit hairy. They can be kind of weird. They can be complicated, hard to predict. And, especially with YouTube, you're kind of dealing with algorithms and, I don't know, maybe a brick and mortar business, I'm sure, has its own sets of difficulties and whatnot. But sometimes YouTube can feel like you're talking into a void.
Absolutely. And that was weird the first time, talking to a camera, because people are like, one of the common questions I get asked often is like, how did you know like where you were going to go with your channel? Like, guitar lessons, but how did you know that like you were going to do the things that you were going to do? And I think having the experience of the brick and mortar, because I just asked myself, I said, when I was teaching privately, who were the people that I loved teaching the most? Like, what music was I teaching that I had the most fun with? And I said, well, that's the stuff I'm going to teach on YouTube, because if it's fun for me, like I'll find the right people. The right people will find me based on the music I'm teaching. And that's how I decided like I was going to go after the older adults, because all the students I taught in person that I was like, I can't believe these people are paying me to teach them right now. Because it was just so much fun. We loved the same music. We would laugh the entire lesson. And I said, well, those are the people who like understand and get me. So when I started my YouTube channel, I was like, I'm going to make my content for this group of people. And that's why I have like a really big, most of my students are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. So everyone's like, how do you get all these people? And I'm like, well, I knew from the beginning, because of my business background, I knew that I needed to target a demographic. And I was like, that's just the one I decided to go after, because for me, that was most enjoyable for me.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So when it comes to your YouTube channel being its own business, are you cool talking about how you're monetizing it and how it has kind of become its own avenue for you? Yeah.
So when I first started, like I said, we all start on YouTube and you get like 1 view, 2 views, then you get 10 views. And I was just trying to test the waters. And eventually I recorded a guitar course, just like a very, very basic beginner guitar course, because I was like, it's probably good to have a product. Being a business person, you should have a product that you can sell. And I was kind of selling a few of those here and there. People would watch the channel, they'd go over to my website. And I think that's very important. I think a lot of people build a YouTube channel without building a website that goes with it. And those two work together so well. A lot of my channel grew because it was growing at the same time as my website was growing. So those two kind of fed each other. So I built this course and I started selling that and started selling some courses here and there. And that's the main way that I monetize. I did get YouTube ad monetized. I think it was August of 2018. So maybe about a little over a year into my journey on YouTube teaching guitar. And I think I made like 2 cents the first day. I was like, yes, I made 2 cents. It's working. It's working. But I was like, okay, like I can get happy and excited over small numbers like that, because then I just start. I'm very big on math because of my science background. I'm like, great, if I make 2 cents a day now and I have like, 40 videos, I just have to make this many videos and get this many views to actually start making real money. So for me, I was excited, like, okay, this is starting to work. But obviously making a few cents a day, you're like, okay, maybe there's a better way to make money. So I always tell people, if you have a product you can sell, even if it's an affiliate product, that you can make money off of. Like I just did an affiliate product for a pedal called Vidami, and they asked me to do a video promotion and they gave me a commission on sales, and I've made a few $1,000s off that video by, doing that for them. So there's other ways to monetize your channel outside of YouTube ads. I think people get so focused on that, but the majority of my income right now comes from the courses, hands down.
Mm-hmm. Like, awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know where I was. I think last year I made like probably 65,000 in YouTube ads last year. And I probably made like 6 times that or 7 times that in the courses. So it just goes to show you the big difference between like, yes, you can focus on YouTube ads, but if you have your own product and service that you can sell, you can make a lot more on that.
Totally, especially with courses, because it's a product that sticks around. You know, you don't have to keep making it. The thing about YouTube videos is you have to make a new one every week, every month, you know, whatever your release schedule is, and that takes time and energy. But if you make something like a course that exists forever, and every time you make a video, you can mention it, that it's just a reliable stream of revenue, and that is a big advantage of selling something, is just the energy you save in the long run.
Yeah, because people are like, oh, you know, I'll release a video, and, you know, in the first week, maybe you make, you know, $25 on the video, but like at the end of this video was a call to action to go buy my course. And it's like, well, actually I sold like 10 courses. So actually the video is worth way more money for your time. And that's the great thing about YouTube is because it really is evergreen. If you get videos that start taking off, they get you consistent traffic for a very, very long time. And so those videos, even though you put the time and effort into it once, those videos will continue to work for you, which is like why I love YouTube versus like Instagram or Facebook. Because I feel like those platforms, you're always chasing new content. I mean, YouTube you are too, but you can put out a video once a week on YouTube. There's some channels that put out videos like once a month, and they're still millions of followers. And that's just their content cycle, like you said. So that's why I love YouTube so much, because I really think it provides a lot more flexibility in lifestyle and scheduling too for people.
Yeah, absolutely. It is YouTube, so you get to decide the schedule, whatever works best for you. And you know, my advice to people when it comes to release schedule is always release as much as possible while still being able to make the videos that you want to make and not driving yourself crazy. So it's kind of a soft number. It depends on the videos you're making. How long does it take you to make a video? Some videos are as easy as turning on a camera, hitting record and talking and then uploading. Some videos take hours and hours and hours and hours of editing. So it's just a...
Yeah, I mean, if you're someone who's doing like, you know, cinematography, like your editing's going to be a lot more on point than they were if they were like a guitar lesson. So, you know, depending on what you're doing your videos on too, you know, the amount of time you got to spend editing and doing stuff on, you know, the post-production, it can be a big time commitment too.
Totally. So you mentioned making evergreen videos. Evergreen is a popular word. People are obviously very interested in making stuff that lasts forever because, well, it just seems like a better use of time to make something that lasts the test of time instead of a video that gets a lot of views instantly and then just kind of dies. So what is your advice on making evergreen content?
So evergreen content is kind of that stuff that almost anyone can use. I call them like the aha moments. It's something you tell someone. So as an educator, we all have these little bits of knowledge and wisdom, and everyone, like, they're secrets, but they're not really secrets. They're well known. It's just they're secrets to other people because they don't know them yet. And there are those moments where someone will watch a video and they'll go, "Oh my God, I didn't know you can do that. Oh my God, that's awesome." So if you can make a video that's like that helps someone, I find that those are the best videos where you'll tend to get a ton of subscribers. They're really good at growing your channel. And because they had that aha moment and they were so helpful, they tend to get shown out more because obviously you tend to get a lot more comments, you tend to get a lot more thumbs up, and people are sharing out that content because it was so helpful. And those are all signals that YouTube looks for. Also, if it's good content, people tend to be watching it for a longer period of time than if it were like, you know, a crappy video where you were all over the place. So those are the types of videos I try to make. I try to look for like, okay, for my audience, what are they looking for? So for my audience, they tend to really like a lot of strumming videos. So I tend to do a lot of stuff on strumming and other technique videos that people would find widely useful. So those videos aren't just for my audience. I was telling you how I make videos for an older audience, but my technique videos are kind of like my broad videos that anyone could watch and anyone could get value from. So I think when you can find videos like that are highly searched, where you can solve a problem for people within like 5 or 6 minutes and give them a really, really valuable video, those things tend to take off and grow your channel very, very massively.
Totally. And there's like two types of videos that I think people can keep in mind when it comes to running a channel. There's videos for your core audience, and then there's ones that are more meant to, they're supposed to have a wider appeal. These videos with a wider appeal are useful because they can bring in new people. Whereas if you're always making videos for your core audience, maybe that can get stagnant. Maybe you aren't going to pull in as many people as you could. And obviously, you don't only want to make videos that are constantly reaching. I mean, you can, but you're going to end up attracting a bunch of people that maybe you wouldn't want to. That could mean your audience is maybe a little toxic. You got a wider reach than you wanted. So anybody from anywhere came in and started saying whatever they wanted. That can absolutely happen. But yes, I think overall it's like 80% appeal to your audience, maybe 70%, 30% reach out to other people. That's a good number, and it does depend, but that's the number I go for personally.
Yeah. Most of my videos that have over 1 million views or like 800,000 views, they're those wide, broad audience videos, and like you said, I always try to keep it like beginner guitar because then at least it's relevant. Like, not all the music might be relevant to the people if they subscribe, but at least all the technique stuff still remains relevant to them. So yeah, that's always like the catch-22, the trade-off of like having very specific content that's made for your audience that they're going to eat up and they're going to love, but maybe it's not going to get millions of views or hundreds of thousands of views. And then you have the stuff that's going to go broad and wide, but maybe you're getting people who aren't exactly like your perfect fit in terms of your audience, but they're probably good because maybe they're learning guitar, so that's good.
Totally. So kind of switching gears here, you have your two brick and mortar schools, and you're kind of, it sounds like you're only managing those at this point, so you don't really go in very often. Is that correct to say?
That's correct. And actually, I'm actually in the process of training a general manager. So my goal as of like September 1st is that I have very little to no time invested in the brick and mortar business, only because the online business is so much more scalable, with way less employees, way less input, in terms of a team. I have a virtual assistant, or I have 2 VAs, and I have, an admin that helps me. And then there's me. So basically with 4 people, we're able to do and create more revenue than some of my music schools are making. So it's very cool. So I want to focus a lot more of my time on doing the online stuff, expanding courses, and just focusing on making content to grow the brand.
That is awesome. And that is the advantage of online, huh? It's super scalable. You can reach anybody anywhere. Like brick and mortar, it's only whoever lives around there. Even if somebody would be a perfect candidate for your school, if they live in Montana, well, then they're not a perfect candidate anymore.
Right. Yeah, they're two very different worlds, but it's cool, because the brick and mortar is a younger audience. We get adults too, but usually it's a lot of kids, and that's cool. And then the online stuff tends to be very adult heavy, so it's like you're kind of getting both worlds. But it's really cool, and it's been fun to watch both of them grow. And obviously, me becoming a bigger brand online, like I've been at my brick and mortar, and I had someone come in, and he was like, I saw you on YouTube. I'm like, cool. And he came in, he was like, yeah, I saw you at a music school in this city. Like, he lived in the city where one of my music schools was. And he's like, so I came in and I want to take lessons. And he's like, I was never expecting to see you at the front desk. I just happened to be there that day for whatever reason. And so he was super excited, but he came in because he had seen me on YouTube. He knew that I had a music school locally, and he wanted to take music lessons at my music school.
Man, that's awesome. It's always surreal when that happens.
Yeah.
Huh? Like, oh my God, the online world and the real world coexist. Like, this is weird. So as far as your next steps for scaling up your online presence, your YouTube channel, your website, can you talk about your plans for that?
Yeah, so for me right now, so we have our first live event coming up next week. That's something I want to get into more, is doing more events to actually meet some of my audience. My channel really started taking off during COVID, and a lot of people were interacting through Facebook and different online communities, and obviously through YouTube as well. So over the coming years, I want to start traveling a bit more and doing like pop-up events where I can actually go out and start meeting people in my audience and do some guitar teaching live as opposed to everything being online. So that's what we're working on. And then obviously expanding the course base that we have now. I think I have like 7 or 8 courses that I've recorded, and I'm going to start partnering with some other guitar teachers, because for me, my main wheelhouse is really acoustic guitar. I can play electric guitar and lead guitar, and I've done some courses on basic levels, but I'm working on partnering up with actually the person who taught me how to play electric guitar, and having them kind of create a brand within my brand and start trying to teach my clients that more intermediate to advanced electric guitar skills. So I'm going to start partnering with another teacher to work with my clients and give them more of what they want, that might be out of my wheelhouse and my strength.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, that is always a good call, right? Hiring people who have totally different strengths than you do. Maybe, there's enough overlap where you can actually communicate, but ultimately, clearly this person is just an electric guitar genius, and that's their thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and he is very, his teaching philosophy is very similar to mine. I've known him for a very long time. He's a good friend of mine. He actually did all the guitar on my second album, and I was just like, hey, you want to try doing, my students keep asking me about electric guitar, and I was like, I could do it. I just feel like you could do it so much better than I could. And, I'm a brand now. They trust me. So if I say, hey, this guy is awesome and he knows what he's talking about with the electric guitar, I said, you kind of got my endorsement, and my brand really, really trusts me, because this is kind of a tip I always tell people, you don't want to dilute your brand. I don't promote too many items. I did the Vidami pedal, but I get offers from companies all the time, but I will only take offers that I feel align with my brand, because I don't want to recommend something just to make more money. For me, that's not worth it. I want to make sure it's something that my audience is going to benefit from. So that's where, I've been very good at not endorsing too many products unless I'm 100% behind them. So bringing on, an outside teacher and endorsing them, my audience really, really trusts my word. And I built that up over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. So what exactly goes into making decisions about what brands you want to do? Obviously, you said you only want to work with brands that you would use, that you respect. I think sometimes that decision can be more complicated than first glance. So, for instance, a company comes to you and you're like, oh, this looks like a cool product. I don't personally use it. Would you still pitch a product like that, or is even that situation not enough for you?
Well, let's take a look at the Vidami pedal. I had never used it before, and they actually came to me and were telling me about this pedal. So it's a looper pedal that works with YouTube, and it also now works at my course now that I'm working with them. But they first came to me and I said no. I said I wasn't interested in it. I don't really use pedals, and it wasn't my thing. And then a few months later, a bunch of my students started telling me about this pedal and how they really liked it, and it was really helping them on YouTube what they're learning. And they're like, you should reach out to this company and see if they can make your course compatible with this pedal. And I said, okay, let me reach out to this company. And I like them because they're a small company. They're family owned. They have very, very good customer service, which is important to me. And we had a Zoom call and we talked about it. And they were like, hey, we'll send you one. We'll send you a pedal. You use it. If you think it's going to be beneficial, then let's talk about it. So they sent me the pedal. I used it. I was like, this actually is really cool. So it was, in that particular case, it was my students who told me to go look at a product. So that was a case of a product where I had never used it myself, but my students kept talking about it. So that piqued my interest. And then other products. So for example, I have one right here. So this is a Kaiser capo, and they actually put my logo on this capo. But I've used this product for over 20 years. And they asked me to do a little collaboration with them. And I said, absolutely, because I've been using their capo for 20 plus years. And it's the capo I recommend to all my students. So that obviously aligned very quickly because I've been using their product for a very long time.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a really organic sponsorship to me.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. I'm glad that worked out so well. And so when it comes to this YouTube channel that is clearly going very well for you, I like to ask people about the before and after. So before you started the YouTube channel, your life looked like XYZ. After the YouTube channel is where it is now. Now your life looks like ABC. Can you walk us through that difference and how YouTube has affected your life?
Yeah, I think the most important aspect of how YouTube has impacted my life is the quality of my life. So, I know there's a lot of people out there and they think like, money is like the root of all evil. And I always tell people, well, money, if you're a bad person, you will use money to do bad things. But if you're a good person, you can actually use money to do good things as well. And it was really COVID when my first video took off in 2019, just before COVID. And most of my time and energy was at the brick and mortar schools. And, we lived a very, very comfortable life. And obviously when COVID happened, we lost like 35% of our business overnight. It was like when everything shut down, we were like, uh-oh, like,
dang.
I'm like, I don't even know what's going to happen. We didn't get a new student inquiry for like 2 months. And I was like, are we going to go bankrupt? Are we going to have to shut these things down? I don't know. But on the flip side of that, fortunately, the online business started taking off. And it was the first time I had ever made like really good money in 1 month. I think April of 2020, I did like a coronavirus sale. I was like, I'm just going to put my course on sale and see like who buys it. And I made like a YouTube video telling everyone I was doing this sale for the month. And I sold like $16,000 in 1 month. And I had never I had made more than that in a month, but not that it was all profit that I got to keep. And I was just like, holy crap. And I was just like, I was in the kitchen with my wife and I said, our life has just changed forever. And after COVID, things kind of went back down and I was only making like a few $1,000s a month, but I finally got a taste of what that could be. So again, I just kind of reverse engineered. What do I have to do to get back to that point? So for me, YouTube has provided us with a lot more like financial stability and being able to make decisions, go on vacations, and go on nice vacations. I mean, we would do small trips, up north to New Hampshire, Vermont. We really like hanging out up there. But we went to Iceland, for 10 days, and it was great to know that like I had this online business. And that's the great thing about YouTube. I pre-recorded all my content. So my content was still posting while I was in Iceland, but I really wasn't doing anything for like those couple weeks while we were away. And, I went away, and by the time I got back between the courses and YouTube, I had basically paid for my vacation over that 2-week period. So that's been incredibly awesome that I just have a lot more opportunities that I can say yes to. Whereas before it was like, is that in the budget? I don't know if we can do that. So because of YouTube, I'm just able to say yes to a lot more in life. And I think that's super important for anyone that wants like a good quality of life.
Totally. Yeah. Like nobody wants to feel shackled to their job or like it's holding them back. And I mean, in your case, making all this money, like being able to go to Iceland, I have always wanted to go to Iceland. My parents actually just got back from there.
That's awesome.
So it's a cool place to go. YouTube has given you more freedom. It's given you more money. Is there any negative side to YouTube that you've had to deal with that you're like, this isn't the best? Like, do you feel maybe it seeps into your life a bit more than a brick and mortar store in ways where it's like hard to stop checking it?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's always trade-offs in life, and this actually happened very recently. I had some guy, he got my cell phone number, and he was calling me, and he left me a number of messages that were like 2 or 3 minutes in length, and I ended up having to like block his number. And I found his comments on YouTube, and I had to block him as a user. But it was the first time I had like a creepy person. Like you could tell that like he wasn't all there in the head by his messages. So that was the first time that someone had like reached out to me and been like super creepy and like in close contact of my life in terms of like calling my personal cell phone. So I was like, okay, that's a little creepy. So now I have 2 different cell phones. I have a business phone and my personal phone. So when I give out, I don't really give out my number for anything anymore. I give out my business number. But that was kind of creepy in terms of the craziest thing that happened. But obviously there's always the haters on YouTube. I know people always ask, like, how do you deal with the haters? And on my Instagram channel, I sometimes do like troll of the week or something. And, it'll be someone who will post like some really stupid comment that you're like, that's what you got out of this video. And, so those things you just kind of take with a grain of salt. I know for some people it's really hard, and I've gotten really good at like making really kind of funny, snarky comments back. But those are kind of the trade-offs. But yeah, you have to be careful because people, especially when you start growing your brand, you become more visible to people. So you start having people who want to friend you on Facebook, or they're following you on Instagram, and like you post something that doesn't go along with like their beliefs, and then they write you and tell you like, I used to like you as a teacher, but I think you're a horrible person now because your favorite color is green, or not that that's happened, but just different, even like political things. Sometimes you have to be careful because when you start growing a brand and it becomes more broad, you start touching lots of people who come from different backgrounds, and they don't always agree with how you feel about certain things, and they will let you know. Anyone that's on either end of those extremes will let you know how you've disappointed them. So yes, having an online presence can be a little bit more invasive, and you have to be a little bit more careful about what you share about your personal life. But in terms of like the downsides of that, the upsides are well worth it, but I want everyone to be aware that as you grow, there are those trade-offs of getting bigger and having more and more people know who you are.
Mm-hmm, totally. And like attention is nice, but sometimes it is not so nice. And it can have some weird consequences. But overall, I'm glad YouTube has been such a huge success for you. Like, it's awesome. That's life-changing money, and it's given you new goals. I mean, this tour, the pop-up tour that you're doing, that just sounds awesome. I'm actually curious, can you talk about the marketing for that? Because like maybe this seems like a very specific question, but you are kind of have these very separate events in very different locations. Like how do you market that?
Yeah, so this first event that's taking place next week, I just wanted to do something local because it was my first event, and this one's going to run the whole weekend. And I just sent out an email to my mailing list. Well, first I sent it out to the people who had actually purchased a course. And I said, hey guys, I'm going to have this event. Who's interested? I just asked. I didn't even put anything up for sale yet. I just said, who's interested? And we polled, and we had a bunch of people came back that said they were interested. Of course, I hadn't given them any prices or anything. So a month later, we put up like a landing page that had a countdown timer with the event, and didn't really have much details because I was still trying to figure out what we were going to do. But I'm like, it's going to be a 3-day event. We're going to play guitar together. We're going to have fun. And there's going to be a VIP package where you guys can play in a band with me. And we sold a bunch of tickets. I think we have like 35 people who are coming out to just a small room that I got here in Boston. I didn't want it to be like a big, like hundreds and hundreds of people. I kind of made the pricing a bit higher to keep it a little bit smaller and intimate for the first event, because I didn't want to have like 100 or 200 people in a room. I wanted it to be like kind of like the core people who really, really wanted to come and see me. So we have a bunch of people who are coming out, and we put together a workbook with some different exercises and workshops and master classes that I'm going to do. And they're all converging on the Boston area. But we also realize, because gas is going up and everything, that, I have a lot of students over in the UK who probably won't fly to America, and spend $500 on a ticket to come hang out with me for the weekend. And me, as someone who wants to travel more, I'm like, well, maybe I can go over to the UK and I can make a business trip out of, going to the UK and get some of, my plane tickets and some of my stuff as a tax write-off, and then I can go off on my vacation. So we're going to start popping up into these different places where I have a lot of students. So say, for example, I have a lot of students in Ontario, Canada. I have a lot of Canadian students, believe it or not. So we're going to try, even in the future, to find localized populations like Texas. I have a lot of students down in Texas. Like, hey, if we have a one-day event down in Dallas, Texas, could we get a lot of people to converge on a city and do an event? And those would probably be like one-day events. I probably want to do big weekend-long things. And I'm like, can I do these pop-ins where I can travel to different cities, like places I want to go and see? And do we have a student population there that's big enough that we could have an event where we have maybe 30, 40 people who show up, and we do a workshop and we have lunch and we do a few things. So that's kind of like what we're looking to in the future.
Mm-hmm. So as far as determining where your students are located in the greatest numbers, do you just use YouTube analytics? How do you get that data? I have a private community as part of my course. So I'm usually getting the feedback from my paying customers first. And I can assume if there's a lot of paying customers in the Boston area, that there's probably a lot of customers who maybe haven't bought anything from me yet in that area as well. So we're kind of letting the paying customers, the people that are in my courses, there's probably about like 1,500 people in the beginner course now. So that's a good little subpopulation of people. And, Texas is a big state, but if you pick one of the bigger cities, there's a better chance that someone will go, from Dallas to Austin versus someone going from Dallas to Boston. Like that's a longer flight especially, again, like I told you, a lot of my students are older. So that might be a long distance for them, depending on where they are and what stage they're at in their life. So we're going to try and find some more local things and make the price tag a little bit cheaper too, because I know, like I said, we sold our tickets. It was $500, and then if they wanted to do the VIP package, it was another $500. So for them, plus a hotel and a plane ticket. So for some people, that was a lot of money. But we did that intentionally with the first event because, like I said, I really wanted it to be the people who were really committed to coming out. And then we'll do, lower ticket prices events for me to kind of go around everywhere and meet people for like a day or something. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's smart to get your first advice from your paying customers, because something we've experienced, like my channel Treesicle, or another one I helped start, Bonsai Pop.
Yep.
Bonsai Pop has a very thriving Patreon, and there's a whole community in there of people who, they're only paying maybe $3 a month to be there. Often it's higher, but basically the people who are willing to give you at least some money usually have more of an investment in you. I think if you release a YouTube poll on your community tab and you're like, hey, where are you guys located? I think people, even if they only watch your videos like once a month and they're not really that invested in you, they don't really know you that well, but they're like, oh, I could get my opinion heard. You start getting a lot of comments from those people. And, that it's great that they want to participate in giving you information, but they may not be giving you accurate information as far as what your audience is actually thinking as a group.
Exactly. Yeah. So 100%.
This is the point of the interview where I like to ask a sort of generic question, and that's, what is the biggest piece of advice you think people need to hear for succeeding on YouTube?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice are kind of those two things I talked about in the beginning. Knowing your why. Why are you doing this? I do YouTube coaching with people, and one of the tests I go through, I call it the why test. And it's like you just keep asking yourself why you're doing something so that you can get down to the root of, because a lot of people are like, well, why are you doing YouTube? Well, I want to make a lot of money. Why do you want to make a lot of money? Well, I want to travel. Why do you want to travel? Because, I want freedom to be able to enjoy my life. And that's the real why behind why you're doing it. It's not because you want to make money. For some people, they are really super motivated by money, but there's usually got to be something above that because the money on YouTube doesn't come instantly. So that's one thing I always tell people. Make sure you have a good why. And then the next thing comes down to really make sure you're dialed in on who your audience is. Because I feel like a lot of people, they dive into YouTube and they try this and they try this, and like they're going in 5 or 6 different directions, and they're like, I don't know why my channel's not growing. And it's like, well, because you're all over the place. Like the people who are trying to subscribe to your channel don't even know what your channel's about. So I think in the beginning, for people to understand that you have to go very narrow, and as your channel gets bigger, then you can go wide and kind of broaden things out, but being very specific over who your audience is and making sure that you're constantly making content for that audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on. And so would you say the best way to get information is, like, I know you talked about like getting information from your paying customers, your paying audience, but let's say you're kind of a mid-tier channel, you don't really have something that you're selling yet. Maybe you have a join button. Like how do you recommend figuring out what your audience actually wants? You know, is it as simple as just releasing videos and seeing what sticks? That tends to be, you know, the most obvious way, but is there any other advice you have to somebody who doesn't have a paying audience yet?
Yeah, I would go into a Facebook group and do some research. You know, go. You know, let's use guitar since that's my area. Go into a beginner guitar group. What are the questions they're asking all the time? Find out what the problems are around something that you know. It has to be something around knowledge, something you're knowledgeable about that you can help people. So find a Facebook group on something that you want to do a topic for YouTube. Search through it and go through the questions. Like, what do people need help with? And start making videos helping people. And watch those videos. Do like 10 videos where you answer very specific questions, answering those things, and then do 10 more. And then analyze the numbers and look at it and be like, oh, these videos got 10 views. This one got 20. Oh, this video got 100. And 100 views isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, but when you're just starting out and most of your videos get 10 or 20 views and then all of a sudden one of your videos gets 100, I call those like micro trends. That means there was something in that video, and it was probably the topic, or it could have been the delivery of the video. There was something that hit. So you need to go back and find out what was the topic of this video, and then make 2 or 3 spin-offs of that same topic, of that same video, it may be answering the same question in a very different way, and see if that spikes off again, because that's where you're going to start seeing what people are really interested in. And it's hard in the beginning because you don't have a lot of people, a lot of views, and a lot of data, but you're really looking for these micro trends to see where people are interested in what type of topic.
Mm-hmm. Sage advice. Lauren, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Clearly, you know your stuff here. Like, I'm really glad YouTube has been so successful for you. That's awesome that you have these brick and mortar businesses that you had preceding YouTube. I mean, that I think you're killing it. I'm really happy for you. I really am. It's awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks so
why
much.
don't you tell people? Oh, yeah. So why don't you tell people where they can find you, your website, your channel, your courses, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so my website, very easy. It's laurenbateman.com. If you want to message me, I'm always over on Instagram a lot. I'm not on my Facebook page as much, but it's the Lauren Bateman on Instagram. You can send me a private message. It's usually, if you get a response, it's me. It's not a VA or some robot. It's going to be me. So if you have a question, you can hit me up there. Or if you want to check out the courses and see a lot of my YouTube stuff, you can find it on the website, laurenbateman.com.
Right on. There you have it, everybody. Lauren Bateman, and thank you for watching. And, no matter what platform you're on, make sure to hit subscribe, follow, like, whatever it is, so that I can see you in the next one. Thank you so much, and goodbye, everybody.